Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Quincy. I'm the founder of Good Looking AI, and I'm back again with another foundational video. And today we'll be covering the topic of JSON. Now, if you're interested in learning how to build these voice AI conversational assistants with little or no coding experience, this video will help you develop a high-level view of what JSON is and equip you to be able to read and write JSON, ultimately laying the groundwork to enable you to become a solid voice AI developer. With that said, let's jump right into it.
So what is JSON? JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and to explain it simply, it's a way to store and send structured data, typically from your computer, which is the client side, to a server, which is the backend database of the software that you're trying to interact with. And also, why is it important to learn JSON? Well, as someone who wants to learn how to build voice AI assistants, JSON will be commonly used on a day-to-day basis, from reading documentation to getting back data from a server. So it's really good to be familiarized with JSON and know how to read and write it. And there are some key rules that you should know to understand how JSON works. The first one being is that data is represented as key and value pairs, where the keys must be wrapped in double quotes. If your key is wrapped in a single quote or it doesn't have any quotations, it will throw an error, or not throw an error, but it will show an error in your JSON. And then the different types of values that we have in JSON is the strings, which are a combination of text, and these need to be wrapped in double quotes. We have numbers to represent numerical values, and these don't need to use double quotes or quotations. We also have booleans, which represent true or false values. And then we have arrays, which are containers of different data items. So in this case, we have an array of strings, but arrays can be flexible. So we can have an array where it's a string and then a boolean value, and then also another object, and then another string and a number. So it can be flexible in that type of way. And then also we have nested objects, where JSON is an object, and you can identify if it's an object or not is if it has this squiggly bracket. So if it's wrapped in squiggly brackets, that's a good indicator that it is JSON. Now inside that JSON object, you can have objects within objects within objects, and that's what is meant by nested objects. So we have this nested key and a nested value. And then we also have null, which represents nothing. So if we need to use, for instance, a key and the value is an object, but it's an empty object, and then we can use an empty squiggly bracket like this. Now, if we have a key and we need to use a array as the value, and it's an empty array, and then we can use this empty square brackets to represent nothing or null. Or if it's just a regular key and value, let's say it's a key like name and it's a string value, but there is no data for that specific value, we can use null, right? So those are going to be the different key rules that you should know. Now that we have a better understanding of what JSON is made of, let's go ahead and dive into the next part so we can start writing and reading and exploring more about JSON.
Hey guys, before we move to the next part of the video, I wanted to quickly ask a favor. If you've been finding any value out of this video so far, please drop a comment, like, and subscribe. It'll really help me stay motivated to keep pumping out this type of content. With that said, let's jump into the next part.
Okay, so right now I am in Cursor, and if you've never heard of Cursor before, it's an IDE, which is a code text editor that is integrated with AI. And the reason why I wanted to use this platform is because I think it's a great tool to learn JSON faster. You can use Cursor to debug your JSON. You can use Cursor to explain your JSON files. You can also use it to write JSON from complete scratch, so to help you read and write JSON. Now, what's cool about Cursor is that there's an auto-populate feature. I'm going to be using that so we can populate this file with a sample JSON, and we'll kind of just go through the different types of key and value pairs that you'll come across working with JSON. So just remember that JSON is an object, and objects start with squiggly brackets. So I'm going to hit tab. Now we have a key of name, and you just notate that it has double quotes, right? Now if I were to take this out and add single quotes, we can see that it's showing the squiggly line, and that just means that you can even see right here, property keys must be double quoted. So that's another cool thing about Cursor. It's going to explain what's going on in your errors, which is going to be very helpful as someone that's trying to learn this type of stuff. So I'm going to rewrap this in double quotes. So we have the key of name and a value of a string, John. And then we have a comma, and then we have the next key value pair. We have a key of age, again wrapped in double quotes. And this time we have a numerical value of 30, right? This can also be wrapped in double quotes, but if you want to perform arithmetic, like for instance, we ever need to add or subtract from this number, it's always best to use the numerical value and not use the double quotes. So that's just something to take note of. Another thing to pay attention to is the commas. So every time, if we have more key value pairs, we need to always add a comma. The only time we don't need a comma is if it's the last key value pair in the object, right? So for instance, if I take this out, close this object, right, we can see that we are getting like this squiggly line. It might be a little hard to see, but we are getting a squiggly line right there. That's because the last object or the last key value pair in the object does not require a comma. So I'm going to take this out, and as you can see, the arrow went away. Now what if let's say I took this comma out? We can see now that there is a squiggly line under the key age, and it also says right here expected a comma. So let's just add that back in. Now let's just populate more sample data into this object. So I'm going to comma and then tab. Now we have a nested object this time. So we have the key of address, which is an object that is filled with different strings, right? So again, same thing applies. We always need the commas before the next key value pair. As you can see right here, since zip code or the zip is the last key value pair in this object, this nested object, we no longer need to add a comma. And now let's just populate some more data into this. So now we have a phone key and a string of the phone number. We have the email, we have the URL for their website. We also have another nested object of social. So we have the object right here with the different social media links. Now let's just add some more. And yeah, so we can see we have all these social media links. Now let's just add some more data to this. Now we can see we have a array. So we have the key of skills, and it's an array, skill 1, skill 2, skill 3. But as I mentioned before, that we can have nested objects within arrays, right? So we can have arrays within objects, objects within arrays, and we will see that more on the next lines. But let's just hit tab, and here's our example of an array of objects. So we have one element in this array, which is an object, and you can see right here we don't have a comma, right? But let's say, for instance, we want to represent null. So let's just say the education is empty. What we can do is we can take this out, and then we can clean it up a bit, and this will signal that the education is null, right? We can also use a null value right here, and that will work. But if education is supposed to be an array, we should just use an empty array. But now let's just go back and add that data back in. So because there's only one item in this array, we don't need a comma. But if I add a comma, and then we can add a second item to the array, which is another object. Okay. So right here we have 2 items in the array. We have 2 objects. And now let's just add some more data. And then we have a second array with only 1 object. And now let's see a Boolean value. So let's just say we have a key. So let's create this premium user. And we can set this to true. So just like all these other data types, right? We can have a Boolean value. So that can be true or false. Let's say is active. We can set that to false. And let's just delete this. So as you can see, we can have the Boolean values true or false. Usually these ones have like that is premier user is active as like it's asking a question, right? But this is pretty much the common types of values that you're going to experience. We have strings that are wrapped in double quotes. We have numbers. We also have objects. We also have arrays. We can have empty arrays, or we can have arrays with only 1 object, right? And then we also have Boolean values. And then let's just delete this one so that we have a null value right here. So that's pretty much it. I know JSON, if you're new to this stuff, can seem very complicated, but once you understand and see the pattern, it's actually very simple, right? Just understand that the keys need to be wrapped in double quotes. Values are strings. We have numbers, we have Booleans, we have objects, arrays, and null values. If you understand that, and you'll have a solid groundwork on JSON to enable you to read and write JSON. Okay, so now that we have like an understanding of what JSON is made out of, how can we like connect the dots and really wrap our mind about how JSON is being used? So JSON is a way for us to structure and send data, but it's pretty much a snapshot of what the backend looks like. Now, it doesn't look like this, right? To give an analogy, we have a backend, which could be like a table, like a spreadsheet, where the name, the age, and the city can be like the columns, right? And John, his age, New York, right? Like the specific user would be like rows, right? So when we look at the JSON, we're pretty much looking at the different data points that is stored for a specific user on the back end on the database somewhere, right? So what's another way to look at it? So if we want to request for data from the back end, right? This is the type of response that we would get for a specific user. We'll get the name, the age, the city, the address, and all this stuff. But yeah, that's just kind of paint a better picture of what JSON is, right? What is it actually like representing, which is the data on the back end.
Hey guys, so to wrap it up, JSON is simple, powerful, and everywhere as a Voice AI developer. Whether you're integrating APIs, building Voice AI agents, or automating workflows, it all comes down to passing clean and structured data. If this helped clarify JSON for you, give this video a like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment down below if you'd like a deep dive on Make.com, Voice AI, or API integrations with JSON. With that said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.